my loves, good morning. Alrighty, everybody. So I know last time it seemed like we dropped the one and done, and that was it. But today, you guys, we are back. I had a lot of things I had to get situated for us, at home things. Got a different setup now, so W setup, for sure. But you guys had to get school started. I'm starting school soon. I had to get the kid in daycare, different things of that nature. Basically, just had to get some things situated here at home. But now, nevertheless, we're back and we're better. And before we left, we were doing all of our death row stories in alphabetical order for each state. So we only done Alabama. So next we are doing Alaska. But as per usual, while I'm doing that, I will be doing a makeup look. So today I am about to be trying that famous yarn challenge while I tell this story today. But yeah. All right, now every place didn't believe in capital punishment or death row or things of that nature. Alaska was one of those places. They never really, practiced capital punishment. It was abolished in 1957. So between December 28th, 1869 and April 14th, 1950. Now this is between the department, the district, and also the territory of Alaska. 12 felons, basically, all male. They were executed by hanging for stuff like murder, robbery, and other crimes. The stuff that you should probably be executed for. Now, some were European, some were Native, and two were African, basically. Now, the territorial legislation abolished capital punishment in 1957, making Alaska the first in the West Coast of the United States basically to outlaw executions, along with Hawaii as well. Now, they did the same. Now, with this situation, the death penalty could probably been very valid, but also he did serve and get convicted for all his crimes, so that was a plus as well. And today, you guys, we will be talking about a criminal sociopath. His name is Robert Hansen. Alrighty, now the person that we're talking about today is called Robert Hansen. He is also known as the Butcher Baker. Now, this man was a serial killer that was active in Anchorage, Alaska between 1972 and 1983. This man was abducting, raping, and murdering at least 17 women that he admitted to and that the bodies were found. Now, Robert was born to Edna and Christian Hansen on February 15th, 1939 in Estherville, Ohio. Of his two siblings, it was him and one other sibling, and he was the oldest one. And his father was a local baker. Now, at a young age, his family did move to Richmond, California in 1942. But he returned back to Iowa around 1949 and settled in Pocahontas, Iowa. Now, it was said in his youth that Hansen was painfully shy. He suffered from a stutter, severe acne that left him permanently scarred, basically. And throughout his childhood, he was described as a quiet loner who had a difficult relationship with his dominant father as well. Now, Hansen also practiced both hunting and archery. Now, like I was saying, he was really good at hunting and archery, which he finds a lot of refugees in those pastimes for sure. Now, in 1957, he did enlist in the Army Reserve, but it was only a year before he was discharged. He later on worked as a drill instructor. For the police academy in Pocahontas. There, he did begin a relationship with a younger woman, and that was around 1960. Now, let's kind of double back and get into some of his early years of his crimes and stuff. So, starting on December 7th of 1960, Hansen was arrested for burning down a Pocahontas County school bus garage. Now with that was his revenge for a mistreatment that he had in high school. That's kind of a situation, baby. You're old as hell. Let go and let God. Like, get it over with. So they did that. He served 20 months to 3 years in prison for that. Now he was in, I feel like I'm going to butcher this, Anamosa State Penitentiary, which during his first wife divorced him, as you should. Now, as well as Hansen was diagnosed with manic depression. Periodic schizophrenic episodes, things like that. Now, the psychiatrist who made the diagnosis, he also noted that he had an infantile personality, meaning he was obsessed with getting back at people who he felt have done him wrong, have wronged him in some type of way or form. So that was literally his whole vendetta. Like, he wanted to get back at people. Okay, y'all. So I know I got like really far. It's like a big jump. But I had to really focus on like the cutting part and the part of my eyes and stuff. And it was kind of hard for me to multitask and do both. But okay, y'all, be back. So with Hansen, over the next few years, he was jailed for petty theft, just like stuff like petty theft. Now in 1976. He moved to Anchorage, Alaska with his second wife, with whom he married in 1963, and whom he also had 2 children with as well. Now, in Anchorage, he was well liked by all of his neighbors as well. He also set like a lot of hunting records. Like, as I said earlier, he was really good with hunting. That is what his thing was. Hunting, archery, things like that. Now, in December of 1971, Hansen was arrested twice. First for abducting and attempting to rape an unidentified housewife. Like, imagine going from like petty thefts to freaking going to attempted R-word. That is crazy. And then also for R-wording, raping unidentified sex worker as well. Now, he pleaded no contest to the assault. Okay, now, like I said, he did plead no contest to the assault with the deadly weapon and the former offense. Now, the rape charge involving the sex worker was dropped as a part of a plea bargain. So, Hansen was sentenced to 5 years in prison. After serving only 6 months of his sentence, he was placed on a work release program, and he was released to a halfway house. Now, in 1967, Hansen pleaded guilty to larceny after he attempted to steal a chainsaw from Anchorage, Alaska, Fred Meyer's store. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, where he was required to get psychiatric help for his manic depression that we mentioned earlier. Now, once he did that, the Alaska Supreme Court, they released him with time served, which I feel like in the beginning there was so many... Wait, sorry, drop my Q-tip. I feel like in the beginning there was so many signs and so many times where they could have, stopped him to prevent what was going to happen next. Now, like I said, they did give him with time served. Now, Hansen was believed to start killing around 1972. Now, what his MO is to believe to have been, he will stalk the woman. He will learn all of her habits and every place that she goes, like her daily routine. And he would ambush them at gunpoint, and he would force them into the car. Once he gets them to his home, he winds up raping them and torturing them. Once he is satisfied, he sends them out into the woods where he would hunt them like dogs until he would find them and unalive them. Now, some of the women that Hansen was mostly murdering were like sex workers, but majority of them were young teenage women, honestly. That is the ones that he went for the most. Okay, now it's believed by authorities that Hansen's first murder victim, was a 18-year-old girl named Celia Van Zetten. Now, Celia Van Zetten was kidnapped December 22nd of 1971. And she froze to death in the wilderness after escaping from Hansen. Now, you guys know it's Alaska. Alaska is known for being one of the coldest places ever, you guys. So, with that being said, they're known for being one of the coldest places. So, imagine being under there, out in the Alaska wilderness, no anything basically, nothing to basically keep you warm or help you survive at all. Now, her body was found on December 25th. Now, the abduction occurred 3 days after Hansen committed assault on the sex worker for which he was imprisoned. Now, while there are similarities between, Hansen MO and the Van Zetten abduction, they did not have any exclusive evidence to link him to the case. And of course, he was denying any involvement. So on June 13th, 1983, Hansen offered a 17-year-old girl, her name was Sydney Paulson, he offered her $200 for oral sex. Now, when she got into the car, this man upped the gun and held her at gunpoint. Now, while holding her at gunpoint, he proceeded to take her to his home where he held her captive. He raped and tortured her as well. Now, she later told the police that after Hansen chained her by the neck to a post in his basement, he took a nap on a nearby couch. And when he woke up, he put her in his car and took her to the Merrill field where he told her. Now, he decided to take her to his shack near the Nick River. Now, this was a part of the Matanuska Valley, accessible only by boat or by bush plane. Now, Paulson, she crouched in the backseat of Hansen's car with her wrist cuffed in front of her body. She saw a chance to escape when he was busy loading the cockpit of his airplane. Ew, gross looking. The cockpit of his airplane. Now, while Hansen's back was turned, Paulson, she decided to crawl out of the back seat and open the driver's door, and she ran. Now, Paulson was a really smart girl. Now, she later on state the fact that she left her heel in the front seat of Hansen's car to basically leave any evidence that she was there. Now, with this situation with her, now she's a track star. She ran off. Hansen immediately panicked. And he started chasing her. But Paulson was very fast. By the time Hansen could even get anywhere close to her, Paulson also reached the nearby road where she managed to flag down a passing truck driver. Now, with this passing truck driver, his name was Robert Yount. Now, Robert Yount, alarmed by Paulson's disheveled appearance, she was beat up. You already know she was tortured, so she looked really bad. Also, no, she's missing a shoe. So he was alarmed by her appearance, but he did stop and pick her up. And he drove her to a hotel called the Mush Inn. Now, the Mush Inn, she was there. She jumped out the truck and she ran inside where she begged the clerk to phone her boyfriend. Her boyfriend, which was at a different hotel, he was at the Big Timber Inn. Now, a lot of people automatically ask, hey, why didn't she immediately call the police or whatever the case may be? I feel as if that was more of a fear thing. It was just more of a fear that first thing she thought to do was call her safety person, which at that moment was her boyfriend, which I understand, but a lot of times people question a lot of things that women do. But you would never know what you would do until you're in that moment. Because fear, sometimes, it can either help you or hinder you. So, for sure, a lot of people do question why she didn't call the police immediately. But I think that's kind of a logical answer. But one thing, the truck driver who dropped her off, he did drop her off. Because he was also disheveled, it was just really like, really just something he didn't know how to deal with. He did report this to the police. Now, when the police officers arrived to the hotel where Paulson was at, she actually, no. So they called the police. She was no longer at the Mush Inn. Now she made her way to the hotel where her boyfriend is at, where her boyfriend was at, which was the Big Timber Motel, because she took a cab there. Now, when the officers arrived, they did find Paulson in room 110. She was still handcuffed and alone. She was frantic. She was just basically, she didn't know what to do. Now, but she did kind of collect it together really fast. They took her to the headquarters, to the APD headquarters, where she described her attacker. Now, Hansen, when he was questioned by APD officers, of course, he denied Paulson accusations, stating that she was trying to cause trouble because he didn't want to pay the extortion demands, basically. He was basically trying to say this little girl was trying to blackmail him, and he didn't want to pay, so she was basically yelling wolf, which we know is not accurate at all. Now, this excuse actually became one of Hansen's go-to for a lot of situations, for a lot of different occasions. But although he has several prior run-ins with the law, Hansen's meek demeanor and his humble occupation as just a baker, along with an alibi from one of his friends named John Henney, it persuaded the police that basically to not consider him as a serious suspect. Like, maybe, she was just, crying wolf, which is another thing I find I find it fault as a police. Because she was a sex worker, they tried not to take her as serious as they should have, which if they would have got him right then and there, then she wouldn't have gone farther. There are so many different opportunities in this story to lock that man up and prevent so many other deaths. Okay, this part I kind of have to read more because I know I'm like butchering the names. But this right here, we have a detective called Glenn Floss. Now, Glenn Floss of the Alaska State Troopers, he was a part of a team that was investigating the discovery of several bodies in or around Anchorage, Seward, and Matanuska Valley area. Now, the first bodies were actually found by a construction worker along the, Elklanuta Road. So, the body was immediately dubbed as the Elkanuka Annie by the investigators because she has never been identified. Now, later that year, the body of Joanna Messina was discovered near a gravel pit near Seward. In 1983, the remains of 23-year-old Sherry Monroe was also discovered in a shallow grave near Nick River. Now, Floss believed that all three women had been murdered by the same person, but they did not know who that person was at that moment. Now, Floss contacted the FBI, an FBI agent named John Douglas, and he requested help basically with an offender profile based off all the MO of all the women because they were so much, kind of like the same. Now, Douglas thought the killer would have been an experienced hunter with low self-esteem. It has a history of being rejected by women. And he would also be compelled to keep souvenirs. The person would also be compelled to keep souvenirs as for his murders, such as like victim jewelry or victim underwear, shoes, things of that nature. He also suggested that the assailant might have a slight stuttering. Using his profile, using this profile that they kind of came up with, Floss investigated possible suspects until he came across Hansen, who basically fit that profile and also owned a plane. Now, no, it was also mentioned that the place that he dumped the bodies cannot be reached unless by boat or by bush plane. So, Okay, wait. So, you guys, another thing, pause real quick. Because, look at this that I made. I'm gonna have to fix it, you guys. I made it for this look exactly. This itself took me, this wasn't that long, but it's a cute little wig. I'm gonna have to re-put this on there. But this is gonna be a part of this look, you guys. But I'm really excited about that part. Okay, but I forgot to show you guys that. But okay, you guys, let's get back to the story. Now, supported by Paulson's statement, flocked in the Alaska Police Department, they had a search warrant. They secured a search warrant, basically, to search Hansen's plane. Now, in his plane, oh, well, wait, just not only his plane, his vehicles, his house, basically. Now, on October 27 of 1983, the investigators uncovered jewelry belonging to some of the missing women, as well as a lot of firearms in a corner hideaway of Hansen's attic, which included a tool, a .223 caliber Ruger, a Mini 14 semi-automatic rifle. Also found was a chart. They found a chart with 37 little X marks all over it. Now, this was hidden behind Hansen's headboard. Many of these marks, they have matched the sites where bodies have been found, and the others were discovered later on at that same location where the X's were at on that chart. Okay, you guys, as you can see, the hard part, the long part is done. One of my freaking ring lights then went out and everything and then died on me. But you guys, back to the story. Now, when Hansen was confronted with all this evidence that was found in his home, of course he tried to deny it as long as he could, but it was overwhelming evidence. Eventually, he tried to begin blaming the victims. He tried to blame the victims for basically they were the reason that he did the things that he did, but nothing that he said could justify the actions that he did. Now, eventually, he started confessing to each item that was evidence that was presented to him. Now, he admitted to a spree of attacks against women starting in 1971. Previously, we thought it was 1972, but he actually started a lot earlier than that. Now, his earlier victims were girls, young women, usually between the ages of 16 and 19, not sex workers. Unlike some of the new victims who led to the discovery, so they automatically thought he was just going for the sex workers, but a majority of them, like I said before, were teenagers. Now, Hansen showed the investigators 17 grave sites in or around South Central Alaska. 12 of which of them were they were unknown to the police. They were unknown to them by, basically, they knew nothing about this at all. Okay, I know it does seem like I'm jumping all over the place, you guys, but this is how far I've gotten so far. But, you guys, so at least 3 of them, he refused to give up. Like, there are certain remains and, like, marks that he did not want to give up at all. The reasoning behind it, we're not entirely sure, but the authorities do suspect that 2 of these marked graves were the graves of Mary Thiel and Megan Emmerich, whom Hansen has denied killing. Of course, he denied killing them. Now, the remain of 12 of the probable 21 to 37 victims, now they were exhumed by the police and returned to their families. So, at least some of their families got, like, some answers and things of that nature, which, of course, doesn't make it much better about all the things that he did. But on the bright side, Hansen was sentenced to 461 years in prison without the possibility of parole, finally. Now, he was first imprisoned at the United States Penitentiary, Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. In 1988, he returned back to Alaska to briefly be incarcerated at Lemon Creek Correctional Center. Now, he was also imprisoned at Spring Creek Correctional Center in Seward until May of 2014. That's when he was transferred back to, Anchorage Correctional Center. Now, for health reasons, because at that point, he was pretty older in age. Now, as with this one, Hansen did die August 21st of 2014 at the age of 75. It was for natural causes for him, like for a reason of passing away. It was stuff that he's been kind of dealing with for his whole life. Now, he didn't get the death penalty, but he did get the years that he deserved. He was in prison for the entire time. This man was a sicko. My condolences to everyone who lost someone to this sicko. But this man was so deranged on so many levels. He would literally send them out to the wilderness to hunt and kill them. He would stalk these women. He would make them literally his freaking prey. Which is not... wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. So everyone who made, and shout out to Paulson who made it through, because she was a really, really smart, strong-willed woman from a young age. And that was beautiful. Alrighty, you guys, and that was the story of Robert Hansen. And next week we will be back to do Connecticut, because we are going alphabetical order, you guys remember. But do not forget to hit that subscribe button and come check out whatever look we're doing tomorrow. But you guys, thank you for sitting through this process with me. It came out a lot better than I thought it was going to come out, so I'm very happy about that, honestly.